thank you for joining us this afternoon. I am now going to be speaking to two actors who will be very well known to those of you watching, and not just from Doctor Who. Please welcome Trevor Laird and Gordon Warnecke. Trevor and Gordon, how are you both? Trevor, you all right?
Pretty cool. It's warm. It's all happening. What can you do?
Gordon, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I've got my cap on because the missus cut my hair. So I'm covering it up.
Such is the joy, a lockdown haircut.
Yeah.
I haven't got any hair, so it's fine.
I didn't want to say anything, Trevor, you know.
It's great to see you both. It's great to see you both. Of course, as Doctor Who fans, we know you from the Trial of a Time Lord, episodes 5 to 8, otherwise known as Mindwarp. From it doesn't feel like it should be, but it was all the way back in 1986. It seems kind of crazy. Trevor, how did it all come about for you, ending up with a part in Doctor Who?
Well, I mean, that time, of course, I was Martha's dad as well later on. But
yeah.
That time, I just got an audition. My agent sent me down there, and I seemed to get the part. I remember the guy. He was like he was in charge of it at the time. Remember him, Gordon? He looked like he was in a heavy metal band.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Writing a book, didn't you? Why you're so happy to be in Doctor Who? You know, everyone had to do it. I remember writing because I was a young scallywag. No classical actor who thinks he's worth his salt would be anywhere until he'd been in Doctor Who or some such nonsense. Brian Blessed called me because had to go at me.
Gordon, how about you? How did it was a fairly similar route, one presumes,
Exactly
an agent.
Yeah, I auditioned and I got the part, and as quite rightly as Trevor said, it was like such a kudos to be in that show. And Trevor and I played for a football team made up of actors and professional footballers. And some of the boys like Ray Winston, Perry Fennick, all those boys, they came up to me, and I'm sure they came up to Trevor, and they were like, "What? You're in Doctor Who? You're lucky so-and-so." And it, you know, even with actors, it's got this great kudos to be in something. It's such an institution, you know, and you don't really realise it at the time. And then, of course, I'm sure, Trevor, you grew up with it. I grew up with it.
Exactly. It's funny because I was trying to remember earlier on. Oh, Gordon, where did we know each other from? We knew each other before Doctor Who. I'd forgotten we used to play football together. Yeah.
The football team sounds like quite a lineup. I can't lie. I'm pretty impressed with that. How did that come about? What was this football team?
TV Entertainers 11.
It was TV. They had some really, really top boys in it. Ray Winston, as I said, Phil Daniels, Trevor, myself, Daniel Day-Lewis played a couple of games for them. Glenn Murphy, all sorts of John Alford. Lot of actors were around at the time, and then a couple of Brookside people came and played for us in Coronation Street, and we play around the country at charity matches, full charity. It was great.
Do you remember Davy Jones from the Monkees used to play on the right wing?
Davy Jones, yes, I do.
He used to stay out on the wing chatting all the girls up on the sidelines. Yeah,
that's exactly right. That's exactly right.
It doesn't sound like he was necessarily in it for the football. So was it? Were you a fairly intimidating team? High scoring?
Well, we used to play.
All right. We were okay, weren't we, Trev?
We weren't bad. We used to play against old ex-pros, so they used to teach us a lesson. I do remember once playing against the Tottenham 11. Glenn Hoddle had arranged a game for the Harlow Hospital because he comes from Harlow, and he arranged a big game. And he had been injured for a while, very famous footballer, and it was his first game back. So I scored a goal in the game. Daniels laid me on and I cracked one. And I actually got mentioned on the back page of the Mirror because all the papers turned up because it was Glenn Hoddle's, coming back. I got a mention for scoring.
That was brilliant. But the thing was that we played, as Trevor said, we played a lot of quite hard teams up north. So a lot of their players, they brought their girlfriends or wives or their partners, whatever, to see the game. So they were out to make a point. Yeah. And they were a load of namby-pamby actors. I'll never forget, Ray Winston would sit in the dressing room and their players would pass our dressing room and he'd be like going, right, come on, lads, let's have it. And I'd be going, whoa. It's like Ray was up. He was ready to battle, and we had some very tough games.
Raimondo used to love it.
Oh, he did.
It sounds like you took it terribly seriously, and I think, as we know, the famous quote, it is indeed we should take football serious, as it is more important than life, of course. Now, listen. So you knew each other. You knew each other beforehand. So did that help when you were on set on Doctor Who?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's nice to meet a fellow actor when you get on set. It gives you just that little bit of confidence and security.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we were very young then, 1986, believe it or not. And
I was about 12 years old when I did that, Trev.
I mean, all the other guys, older actors, so we were like the two youngsters, so all the other actors.
Yeah.
The Mickey Adams. I'll never forget Patrick Rycard. What a top man. Posh actor, but an absolute top man.
Yes.
Not long after that, I was up at Oxford Stage Company doing Much Ado, and we did we used to do 1 week, it was a tour. 1 week was open air. We did it at Arundel Castle in West Sussex. Wow. And I turn up one day to do the play, and I see these two people on horseback coming towards me on horseback, and suddenly I heard, "Is that Trevor Laird?" It was Rycard. He was married to the daughter.
Friends in high places, you see. That's what that is. Friends in high places. Trevor, you played Frax, who was an attendant to the Mentors over on Thoros Beta. With this wonderful, it was the second time Nabil had appeared on Doctor Who as Syl. What's that like, working alongside? That's a very much a larger than life character.
What a top man. And I've known him since then. I haven't seen him for a long, long time, but I used to bump into him here and there after that. What an absolute top man and an absolute darling man. As was Chris Ryan as well, because we all love I forgot the name of the show now. Huh?
It was the young ones.
The young ones. So Chris, top man, lovely, very humble guy, very quiet. And then you loved him from the young ones, and he was in it. And of course, well, what needs to be said about Blessed?
Well, I was going to say, that's quite. Gordon, you were working. A lot of your time was spent working alongside Brian. A force of nature. How do you deal with that as an actor?
I think you just hide. Brian is lovely. He's great. He's larger than life, as everybody knows. He had this thing, he's dressed up as this samurai warrior or whatever, with a big helmet and everything. And he used to go onto set. And of course, the studio was a very large set for Doctor Who. And he would go out onto set and he would say, "Tea break, tea break." And you'd see these people climbing down from their cameras, from all the cherry pickers or whatever, and coming down. Everybody's going off. And Ron Jones, the director, would go, "Where's everyone going?" Because he's crying, calling out, "Tea break! Come on, tea break!"
Well, one of Blessed's jokes. He's a great practical joker, Brian. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Because of course, don't forget, in those days, everything used to rehearse. We called it the Acton Hilton, which was like a big studios opposite North Acton Station. So we'd be sat in there having dinner, and Brian took us under his wing, the youngsters, because, we'd be sitting there having dinner. Morecambe and Wise would walk in. or anyone, you know, or the two, you know, anything that was on the BBC, they rehearsed it. And Blessed used to get up and practically start a show in the canteen with Morecambe and Wise, and of course Eric would, you know, they're giving it backwards and forwards, you know.
That's great. That's really good. So, yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot about the Acton Hilton. For some reason, this week it was the first time I'd ever seen an actual photograph of the place. Now, obviously, it was only one of the rehearsal rooms, but that looks like quite a large space, and something I don't think one gets quite so much of nowadays. A rehearsal like that. Did you find it valuable? That kind of rehearsal time?
Of course, you know, it was like being in the theatre. You know, they'd put the mark on the floor like you would if you were rehearsing a play. You'd rehearse it a bit, because when you went into the studio, they'd have the 5 cameras running, and then you just did it as if you were doing a play, and then the cameras would be cut in between you. You know what I mean? So it looked as if really you were just doing it continuously, and then of course something would go wrong, or they'd have to go in for a close-up on it. So you'd go back, but essentially they tried to run each scene all the way through with the 5 cameras cutting, you know, like, you know, balletic. The guys used to push those cameras around. They were like on, you know, like little hovercrafts, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm sure Trevor has. In fact, I know he has. We both, back in the day, rehearsed a lot of TV at the Acton Hilton. It's a mainstay. What we didn't know, what I didn't know, was when we did those episodes of Doctor Who with the tunnel. It just looks like this never-ending tunnel. But it wasn't that big, to be honest.
Yeah.
And all I did was I reversed the camera and shot it from a different angle. So it'd be running up and down the same tunnel. But
Of course.
When it came out, it looked like a very long tunnel.
I mean, it's done very well. And I have to say, watching it, I think it's one of those that stands up really well in terms of how it looks. You know, we know that it's a BBC budget. There's almost no money there to be had. As it was, the tunnels that you had, I know, are reused from a story earlier in the season. They're just painted a different colour. But nonetheless, I think it stands up really well and looks really good. Have either of you, Trevor, have you had a chance to see it in recent years at all? Or would you even bother?
Well, now, bizarrely enough, I did a convention a few years ago now, and we had to do a thing on stage. And I said, look, I haven't seen it since 1986. It went out, and a guy came up to me, you know, a fan, and said, look, I've got it on DVD. If you like, if you give me your address, I'll send it to you. And I thought, wait a minute, should I do this? Shouldn't I do this? Okay, here's my address. And he sent me the DVD, wow. You know, like a copy of the whole 4 episodes. Yeah. And it must have been, well, it would have been, yeah, it was after I'd done the ones with Dave Tennant. So, you know, so then my kids, who are now 21 and 18, were a bit younger than my son. He was into the David Tennant and all that and loved it, right? I played it to them, and my son, who got a few years later, he's 18 now, he would have been maybe 11, 12, so I don't know. He said, oh, blimey, Dad, everyone's just talking. It's just talk. There's no action.
That's how we used to do telly. That's how it worked. I mean, that said, though, it's a good opportunity. If you bear with us a moment, Gordon, I am just going to come on to that because, Trevor, 21 years later, you were back in Doctor Who, and it was what's known as a semi-regular role. Clive Jones, dad to companion Martha. That must have been a huge difference to what you'd experienced back in '86.
Wow, I mean, that was like shooting, it was like big time stuff, like shooting a movie, you know what I mean? We'd be up, you know, late night filming, all, you know, special effects and crazy stuff. The wonderful, gorgeous David Tennant, of course, the wonderful Freema, and of course, the girl that played her sister, Gugu, who's I'm with the same agent as her, is now a mega star in Hollywood.
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
You know, so... You know, that was a great cast, you know, and of course, Adjua, you know, I feel like I've been with Adjua all through this lockdown. She's like the biggest voice on Radio 4, every play, you know, she's on it all the time, you know, so, you know, and all the different people, you know, and it was great, you know, that I really enjoyed that, particularly because David Tennant is such a top class person. I saw him recently at National Theatre. You know, I was doing a show down there and he turned up, you know, and he's such a top man, Dave Tennant. You wouldn't believe it. You know what I mean? He'd do anything for anyone. type
Yeah.
of a guy. He was
Yeah.
the star. I won't mention that John Barrowman's not quite the same, but
I've heard all sorts of things about John Barrowman. Let's just park that and leave that on one side, shall we? I think it's safest. So a lot of camaraderie on that particular set. But that's been said, I think, almost throughout the history of Doctor Who. Gordon, did you find that you were welcomed onto the set by Colin and Nicola back in '86?
Yeah, it was a very, very welcoming set. It's like, as Trevor will say, although he was part of the family when he did it again, the first time we both did it, you're like the second cousins. You're entering a family's domain. Do you know what I mean? And whenever you do anything like that, I mean, Trevor's done so much work, and I know he'll verify what I'm going to say. It's like, I've done Only Fools and Horses, EastEnders or whatever. You're kind of like a bit of an outsider, but you've been invited and you come into the threshold, but they make you feel welcome.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened with Doctor Who and all of that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now, Gordon, I happen to know the answer to this next question because we had a chat beforehand. Now, Trevor has said there that he's got the DVD. I think you've got a slightly older version of the story.
I'm trying to top you there, Trevor. I've got one of these babies, right? And inside is nothing, but what is actually in it is the videos.
wow, the whole of the trial of it.
Look at that. Proper videos.
Yeah.
Look at that.
Trial of the Time Lord, whole lot.
Amazing. Trial of the Time Lords, yeah.
Gordon,
So,
did you rush out and buy that to at the moment it went on sale?
I think my partner bought it for me. I think she saw it. She didn't know me at the time.
Yeah.
But she knew that I'd been in Doctor Who, and I think she gave it to me as a present for my birthday or something, which I was
Brilliant.
quite touched by. So we
That's
have it
brilliant.
proudly at home.
That's really nice. Have you seen it since?
I've seen clips of it.
Hmm.
I don't know why I've seen clips of it, but yeah, I've definitely seen clips of it. I don't have a video recorder anymore, so I can't watch it on video. I'm sure I've got the DVD of it. Maybe I should crowd back into it. I'm too busy watching Trevor. I was watching him a couple of weeks ago in One Man, Two Governors.
God, yeah, that's
Oh,
it.
gosh,
Well,
brilliant.
absolutely. Because
And every time I go to the National, I'm not being serious. I'm not trying to suck up to Trevor. It's a joke. Like last year, before lockdown came in, I'm sweating every show. I went to see Trevor. Oh, look, there's Trevor. Oh, look, there's Trevor. He was in a show at the Royal Court. He was on at the National. It's like, and I turn on the TV. He's in One Man, Two Governors, which I knew he was in because I saw him in the original. You know, and there he is now. It's like, I can't get rid of him.
There are worse people to be bumping into. So, Trevor, it sounds like it's been a busy year or so then.
I've had a couple of very busy years. Last year, I mean, luckily, touching wood because of this lockdown business, was a big year because, of course, an old movie I was in, well, I started at the beginning of my career, Quadrophenia, that was 40 years old. So we spent our time going and doing a lot of conventions for that. Then the One Man, Two Governors, it was 10 years of what they call NT Live, is where they film all the, they film it and put it out worldwide. And they chose that one to be the celebration. They re-released it worldwide. So a nice little thing there. And then, of course, when the one came, they decided, we'll stick that one up as the first one on YouTube for people for free so that people can watch it, So then that was that going on again. So yeah, it was a good. Then I was at the National for 8 months last year doing a play called Small Island about
which I saw and was really, really good.
So yeah, and then did a couple of movies. I mean, I had a good year last year, I've got to say. So very good year.
Good stuff. Well, and of course, talking about movies, Gordon, the year before Doctor Who, you were My Beautiful Laundrette. I mean, that's a huge thing to be involved with relatively early on in a career, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. I'm coming back to Trevor now because this actually, okay, so last year, Hanif Qureshi, who wrote Laundrette, wrote a stage version of it.
Oh, well, yeah.
And we performed it at the Curve Theatre in Leicester, and it went on tour. And it was supposed to be coming to London like now or whatever, but obviously it can't. And I bumped into Trevor because what happened was I was on the South Bank, and I'd seen Small Island, and I met up with one of the actors, and who should walk past, and this was like 3 months before we started rehearsing, and I said, "Oh, Trevor, this is Trevor Laird." He came over, and you met the guy who played my part in the original film.
That's right.
Do you remember? And it was your last performance of Small Island that night.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that, sort of outside the National Film Theatre.
Outside the National. You see, he's stalking me, or I'm stalking him. So last year we did. I played the father this time of the character that I played in the original film, and it was fantastic. Loved it. The Pet Shop Boys came up and they wrote the music for the show.
Yeah,
they did three sort of interlude numbers, if that's the right word. And one of the songs they've released as a single. Nikolai Foster directed it. It was an amazing experience, and I hope it comes to London. It won't be this year, next year.
That would be great. That would be great. Really good. Really good. Yeah. Something I was interested in talking to you about, Trevor. I know back in 1978 you were involved in founding the Black Theatre Cooperative.
Correct. Yeah.
I mean, how did that come about? I mean, you know, given some of the frankly awful stuff, it goes beyond awful, but I probably shouldn't swear, that we're seeing, you know, in the news at the moment. Work like that back then seems possibly more relevant now than ever. I mean, what drove you to set that up in the first place?
I mean, I was at the Royal Court doing a play. It was just before we did Quadrophenia, and a stage manager there, a guy called Charlie Hanson, who's now a big TV producer, said to me, we were doing this play called The School Leaver. It's basically about a young hooligan who's at school. He runs the school, and then when he leaves school, he has a rather rude awakening life on the outside, and then he ends in prison. You know, it's following this story, which was upstairs at the Royal Court. Anyway, Charlie was the stage manager, and he said to me at some point during that, "Listen, I've got this play, right? No one wants to do it. It's about young black kids. I think you'll be great in it. You know, do you know any other black kids?" And I knew Chris Tummins and Victor Romero Evans. So I said, "Yeah, I know some of these guys. They're from shit like me." So then we decided to form this company with the writer and the staff from Matura. God rest his soul, he died. I was at his funeral just before Christmas. We formed this company, the Black Theatre Cooperative, ostensibly, so that because in those days you could get a project grant. If you formed a company, then we could get a grant off the Arts Council and then it was just to do that one play, and it was such a big hit that then the company, you know, went on, you know, and so on, and then, you know, eventually the company ended up having a TV series, which I wasn't in because I was signed to do another thing at the time, so I couldn't do it, but they used to have a series on, so they did a couple of series of No Problem, which came out of the theatre company, you know, so that company, you know, made a big splash going into the 80s. You know, money got tighter, of course. Mrs. Thatcher cut things off.
Oh, but, yeah.
You know, it could be that if you were a young theatre company, you had an idea, you could go to the Arts Council, or they used to have a thing, the London Arts Association, GLAR, Greater London Arts Association, which was like a regional art. They used to have them all over the Arts Council. That was the London one, and it was when Ken Livingstone was in, you know. Yeah. And if you went to GLAR and they gave you some money, the rule was the Arts Council had to match the money that you got from GLAR. So, of course, you know, Ken Livingstone, they were all left with, you know, we went to them, they wanted to support this project, gave us some money. The Arts Council were obliged to match that. And then we put the on and it became a hit, you know, and then we went on from there, you know.
Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And Gordon, I mean, we talked about My Beautiful Laundrette, which actually, you know, it's often said the theme of same-sex relationship, and given the political time then, you know, that was dramatic in itself, you know, and important in itself. But also, it's as much a film about race as it is about sexual identity. were you aware that, did it feel like that, or was it just, you know, the gay film?
No, because I think, as you say, there's a lot of different levels to it. You know, it's about becoming an entrepreneur. It's about homosexuality. It's about relationships with your family. It's about all sorts of things. So I don't think any of us ever, while we were making it, thought of it as a gay film. It was just a natural progression within the relationship between two characters.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Do you think, and this is to both of you, but I'll start with you, Gordon, as I'm speaking with you. Do you think, particularly at the current time, that drama, both, you know, film, television, theatre, has a part to play in breaking down those kinds of barriers, both about race and gender identity and sexual? Does it still have an important part to play?
Undoubtedly, I think Trevor and I are very lucky to be part of a profession that can bring certain issues to the surface for the public to see. Every time Trevor or I walk in front of a camera or on stage, it's already a political statement. It's already a political statement. And to be able to give voice to certain things you agree and sometimes disagree with is a fantastic thing to be able to do. And you feel as though you're contributing to society. I was speaking to Hanif Qureshi very recently, about a month ago or so, and he basically said that performers are key workers. We are key workers. What are we all turning to now during lockdown? We're turning to books, we're turning to television, we're turning to these amazing live productions that have been shown, turning to films, Netflix, you name it. You know, and people are spending hours. We are key workers, and I feel honoured to be part. And yes, there's nurses and people that on the front line, they're key workers. We are all having a massive input into the current situation that we currently find ourselves in now.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Now, Trevor, I mean, what's your take on that? Do you think, likewise, do you think it still has an important role to play, the arts in challenging these issues?
Yeah, of course. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, as Gordon has rightly said, in these great times of stress like we're living through now, people go, you know, to drama, they go to, I mean, I was thinking the other day, and I've been doing a lot of reading here and, you know, just catching up with myself after the years of so just working. You know, I was thinking about Hanif, because I used to know Hanif very well. I mean, Black Theatre Cooperative, we spoke about that. We were offered by the great Peter Gill, who's one of the great, he's about 80 now, but one of the great stage directors, certainly from the 60s onwards, right? We were asked to come, and we could be based at his theatre, which was Riverside Studios in Hammersmith. And Hanif Qureshi used to work in the bookshop. We're talking about 1979, 80. So he used to be a young guy, very quiet young guy. We got to know him, young Asian guy, we were black kids, you know. And then I saw his first play that he did at a place called the Soho Poly. A mate of mine, Mark Wingett, who I'd been in Quadrophenia with, said, I'm doing this two-handed play with Neil Pearson, you know, who went on to be famous. You know, and they were both very young, maybe it was 1980, I don't know, something like that. And went to see this play at the Soho Poly, which Hanif had written. It was his first play, and it was about two young skinheads, ostensibly, you know, racist. But interesting thing, and this is why I mention this, is because Hanif has always been, and the more you look at it now, and I'm thinking I might go back and I was thinking the other day, I must go back and read some of his novels, because, you know, the things that guy did at the time. You look at the story of My Beautiful Laundrette. You look at the story of that play, which I can't remember the name of. These two young skinhead kids, supposedly, you know, they're race hacky bashers, you know, pardon the phrase, you know, but he looks into them. You know what I mean? He looks into them and examines their psychology even then. You know, and other things he's written, you know, The Buddha of Suburbia. I must go back and read that novel. I remember seeing the TV thing, you know, and he's written some great stuff, and the films he did, you know, from, you know, Sammy and Rosie. And after he did My Beautiful Laundrette, he got obviously a platform that was a big hit. I think Dan Day got nominated. You know what I mean? What doesn't he get nominated for? But you know, you know, for that. You know, he's Hanif. Writers. The more I think about it, writers and people like that are key. They are key works. Obviously, we as actors, we would perform in their works. But people like Hanif, you know, has been doing it for 40 odd years. Well, certainly 40 years.
Yeah.
I think I met him in 79 or 80 when he was working in the bookshop. He'd have been writing then, you know what I mean? You know, but working in the bookshop till he got his start, you know what I mean? But it's so important, so important.
Well, as well as being obviously the time we're in, as well as being a physical health concern, there's a huge mental health concern. There already is that issue within the nation, and more so now. A lot more of that's coming to the fore. Without the creative arts of all kinds, there would be nothing. People would be at home with nothing to turn to, nothing to look to. So I couldn't agree with you more. At the risk of sounding, you know, terribly worthy, actually, the creative arts are vital for these times, and actually for always, and not just, you know, from that side of things. And I hate to boil it down to this, but also economically, it's a huge contributor to the way the country works. It's crazy to think it isn't.
The money that the creative arts makes it's astounding, and of course we're right on the edge of it now, because of course in the theatre particularly, people have to gather to watch the theatre, and of course that's not going to happen. If you're on a film set, as Gordon knows, we all know, loads of people hanging about, you know, the crew, the cast, you know, the supporting artists, whatever, hair and makeup. That's going to be a problem to get that back on, you know, going until certainly and what do you call it? Something that can cure the thing is.
A vaccine, something, yeah.
So, you know, we're right on the edge of stuff, and who knows how long this thing's going to last. You know.
But it's great because a lot of people have taken up the mantle. We are in a situation which we don't know how long it's going to go on for, but there's some fantastic work, a lot of monologues and online stuff that's being produced and made. Not just by actors, but just by people. And, you know, we're all filtering into the system, you know, the whole internet thing, and talking to each other about what we've been watching and so on. So if there's one good thing, if you can say that, that's come out of this lockdown, is the amounts of stuff that we're communicating with each other, and seeing the stuff that's out there online and making you think about stuff. It's great.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more, and that's part and parcel of what our event has been about. I mean, we've been doing these for quite a number of weeks now, but one thing I do have to say, as we have come to the end of our time, what I do have to say is we wouldn't be able to have done any of these events without being able to speak to people like you, Trevor, Gordon. It's been an absolute pleasure, really interesting. I've really enjoyed myself. I hope it's been good for you guys as well.
Really good.
So I'd like to say a huge thank you to Trevor Laird and Gordon Warnecke. Now, I know that at home people will be doing a virtual round of applause. I'll do you a real one. I'd like to say thank you both for having a chat with me, and stay safe, and we'll see you soon. Thanks ever so much, chaps.
Very much for inviting us on, and good luck, and stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.
Soon.